So here I am standing in the garage in my early 20s, having a Dodge Viper on one side and an Escalade on the other side. I've got 20 people in my living room and my upline saying it's over. So they went bankrupt, canceled all of our contracts, kept the customers that we gained for them, and we were out on our booty. We can connect in with each other and be in community and regulate our nervous systems together if we're in a safe space to do so.
Before we get into the show, I'd like to say a huge thank you to our sponsor, First Human, of which I am a co-founder. First Human is dedicated to extraordinary impact in the world through exceptional leadership. So if you're looking to elevate the leadership of your team or your organization, then do check us out. We also offer one-to-one coaching. So if you'd like to get coached by me or one of my extraordinarily talented fellow coaches, then head over to firsthuman.com. And with that, back to the show. And we are live with another episode of Being Human. I'm delighted to say I'm here with Shay Wheat. She is the CEO of Grace and Ease Productions, a leading live event producer. She is also the podcast host of Creating Powerful Impact, on which I was a guest very recently and delighted to have been so. So for any of you out there who may have an interest in event production or have an event coming up that you're involved with, then this is definitely one for you to listen to. Shay, a huge warm welcome to the show.
What's going on? I'm so excited to be here. And the fact that your episode is live on our podcast, everyone deserves to go and take a listen because we had so much fun reviewing a ton of different things. So I definitely suggest you go and listen to you on my podcast because it was loads and loads of interesting things that I hadn't thought about before.
Brilliant. Yeah. Including an epic story about a teddy bear.
Oh my God. The stories alone, I love that. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant. So as I was preparing for the show, I was going onto your website and looking at all of the reviews of those who've worked with you as an event producer and describing events in a way I have never experienced. Like my only experience of event is hair pulling and stress and sweating and the way that your clients described having worked with you in the events was extraordinary, exactly as it says on the tin. Having had an experience of grace and ease in their events. So it's wonderful that you're able to have that impact with your clients.
Thank you. Yeah, you're right. Events can be super stressful. They can be hair pulling out moments. They can cost a lot of money. They can, I like to think of events as kind of living, breathing entities all of their own, where we will do the same event year after year after year for a client. And every single time the event is different. The people who are showing up are different. The people you are as the event host or the one that's putting on the event is different. You've had different experiences. So I think it's because you're bringing in humans into the experience of an event. It's never going to be the same. And if pandemic showed us anything, they will never die, right? Because we're humans having an experience, needing to be with other humans. And that's what events allow us to do, is come together as a community, come together as, there's events for everything. There's events for knitting. There's events for, sensuality. There's events for business. There's events for food and how food is prepared, right? Like events are just universal and worldwide, but the way that we do it a little bit differently is wanting to incorporate as much grace and ease as possible because they can be a bit stressful.
Brilliant. I mean, and what a pitch. I just love the whole premise of what you're doing. Now we are going to go deep into mining you for your wisdom around event production. But before, as with all my guests, I love to get some of your backstory, where you grew up, relationship with your mum and dad, with your siblings. Some of your early events shaped who you are as an entrepreneur and as a leader.
Okay. Yeah. How far back we want to go.
So yeah. As far back as you're willing to take it, Shay.
Yeah, so I grew up on a ranch. We call it a ranch in California, USA, Northern California, which is about 10 acres of land, horses, dogs, and cats, with my family, brother, stepsister, stepdad, mom, and, kind of had to, where my nearest neighbor was a mile away, right? So you had to like drive into town. You had to drive into all these places. So I like to think, if I'm looking back at what I do now and what I did as a kid, I think I was built to do this, because if I wanted to have friends over, I had to plan. I had to plan for them to like come to the pool party. I had to plan for them to like, what are we going to do while we're all together? Oh, we're going to make hats one day, and then we're going to go swim in the pool, and this is what we're going to have for lunch, and then we're going to do movie night, and what are we having during snacks? So I've been, if I really look at it, always planning events as a kid. But that kind of got me started on the trajectory of what are the things that bring me joy, right? Having the horses, having the dogs and the cats. I have a ton of fur babies when I was on the ranch. I have fur babies now, right? So growing up, I enjoyed being with people, bringing them into community, and then also going, okay, y'all go away. I need some downtime, which,
Right.
Later down the road, doing some personal development and human design, realizing who I am and what makes me tick and what works and what doesn't work. Fast forward a number of years, I went to university, college out here in the States. First woman in my family to graduate from college and a
Oh, wow.
4-year university, with the hope and dream of becoming a medical doctor. That didn't quite work out the way I wanted to, because I was sitting there in organic chemistry in a, like a little, what would you call it, cubby hole type of thing, trying to like block out everybody else and focus on organic chemistry. It's sitting there going, fudge, this is not what I'm supposed to do with my life. This sucks. So I ended up switching my major to my minor, which was psych. Graduated in 4 years. I was on the 5-year plan, graduated in 4. And then I was also at the same time dabbling with network marketing, being an entrepreneur. And so, kept going that direction, did really, really well. Ended up, building a team of people, and, building income that was residual, and learning about that, and doing a ton of personal development. You and I, before we pressed play, was talking about, when you're an entrepreneur, like, that is the curriculum, is personal development on steroids.
Exactly.
So from there,
And
had,
what were you said? What I have interest in? What were you selling in the network marketing?
yeah,
And doesn't that have like? I mean, I hear that term, but it sometimes somehow has a bit of a bad rap. Like
it
what?
does.
What?
Yeah.
So yeah, just talk us through it. What? Yeah. What you've been
Yeah. And
doing
so
there?
I'm like in my early 20s, selling long distance phone service. Ooh,
Okay.
how sexy is that? Well, and it's like, so we had all these like super young entrepreneurs, getting super creative and thinking outside of the box of how to get customers. I mean, we were in order to trigger a check, you had to have somebody brand new who would sign up as a vendor, a representative, and you'd have to have 2 customers switch over their long distance. Well, we had a bunch of other young entrepreneurs, people in college. They didn't have necessarily long distance phone plans. They lived at home with their parents. If they could get their parents to switch over to long distance, great. But if not, how do we help trigger the bonuses and everything and get them up and running? So we were like on the corner of gas stations, waving signs around going, free gas, giving away $20 in gas in order to have them switch over their long distance service to us.
Wow. So
Right?
you were really like cutting edge of sales.
Yeah,
right from the start of your career.
it was a, let's go, let's figure it out. How can we get creative? Um, New experience for me because I'm not a outwardly facing kind of entrepreneur. Like I'm more introverted than extroverted, which is why events work so great for me because I can be behind the scenes
Yeah.
and my clients are the ones that are up on stage doing their thing. But yeah, so I could shake the sign, but I didn't have to be the one going and talking to them to switch over their circuit,
Okay.
right? So it was like a tag team type of thing,
Mm.
right? So you find out what works for you and works for your personality, and then do it as a team and as a community.
And you build up a team
Built
of
up a
gas
crazy lot.
station warriors.
Yeah. I mean, to the point where, you know, it was all great and amazing. And we have people coming over to the house learning about how to build residual income. And, you know, I get a call from our upline, my business partner and I, and he's like, I need you to step out. And we're like, well, we're about to do a meeting with like 20 people in our living room right now. And he's like, you really need to step away for a second. I'm like, okay. So we go in the garage. And here I am on speakerphone with our upline. I've got a Dodge
And
Viper.
sorry, what's an upline? What do you mean by
Oh,
upline?
an upline. So in network marketing, it's like a tiered type of thing. And so the person that signed us up into the company is considered your upline.
Okay.
So here I am standing in the garage in my early 20s, having a Dodge Viper car on one side and an Escalade on the other side. I've got 20 people in my living room and my upline saying, it's over. Yeah.
Wow.
So the company we were with sold to a different company. They were not financially sound. So they ended up canceling all of our contracts. They went bankrupt, canceled all of our contracts, kept the customers that we gained for them, and we were out on our booty, right? Because we were just 1099 essentially. We were not employees. We were entrepreneurs. We were their outsourced sales force, so to speak,
Okay.
right? And so they canceled our contract, and it was it. That was it. We were done. And so from there, I kind of floated around a little bit.
Did that leave you in a lot of debt?
Yeah, I between that and a couple of other things, like trying to go, where do we go next? Kid you not? Oh my gosh! So when that happened, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of representatives were lost, and so all the other network marketing companies were like, "Hey, bring your group over to us and sell for us." Kid you not, we had Tony Robbins pitching us on a network marketing company because he was friends with like Shackley or what have you. And he was like, yeah, come on down, learn about Shackley. And, here's Tony Robbins and why you should be with us. It was the weirdest experience I've ever had. So it's
Yeah,
kind
so
of
you go from losing the business overnight to Tony Robbins pitching you to come and join them.
right. Yeah.
Right. His
So
friend. Mm.
so we joined some other companies. We floated around for a little bit. We got into real estate. And then 2008 hit for us here in the States,
Mm.
which was all of the mortgages and all of the housing and all of the where I lost 2 homes and went into short sale. So they didn't go into, total default, but I was able to sell them, but obviously didn't make any profit, lost out, had debt from that, and really kind of got into a place where I was so completely lost. Like, what am I supposed to be doing with my life? And that's where I started to dive deeper into some spirituality and ended up finding Reiki, which is an energetic healing modality that I became a Reiki master in, and started going, okay, like everything happens for a reason. I've always believed everything happens for a reason. And how do things build on one another? Looking back, hindsight's 2020. I can easily see why my path was the way that it was, but in the moment, it sucks. Like I was in an apartment no, let me back up before that. So remember I told you I grew up on a ranch, horse,
Yeah.
cats. So it got so bad that I ended up leaving the relationship I was in. I lost my 2 homes and had to move back home. But when I moved back home, I had 3 cats. And so I couldn't move my 3 cats into the house. Instead, we had to move into the office in the barn, me, myself, and my 3 cats.
Okay.
And so here I am sleeping on a cot. All of my clothes are next to the horses' saddles and the brushes and the
Right.
bridles. And, I'm sleeping in a sleeping bag, and I've got a refrigerator and I've got a microwave and my 3 cats going,
Wow.
what the fudge am I supposed to do now?
And how were your parents about that?
Well, they also were going through their own stuff. And so, they were dealing with their things. Uh,
Okay.
yeah. So it was like everything seemed to be crumbling down all at this time in our lives.
And it was at that point you found Reiki, or did that come later?
It came a little bit later. So I ended up becoming a resident manager of an apartment complex where I was being in charge of 18 units. So in exchange for that, I had free room and board so I could get out of the barn, actually sleep on a proper bed,
Mm.
have a bathroom and come on, the bathroom in the barn was you had to go outside of the office to go into the bathroom, but there was no roof on it because it's just a couple of walls, and then the roof is the actual barn.
Right.
It wasn't enclosed at all. So all the spiders and the bugs. So much better living in an apartment complex that I
Right.
managed. And that was really the space where I was able to lick my wounds and sit in the dark and just kind of recoup. Out of that, I, was doing the personal development and working back on me, and opportunities showed up where I could then learn to become a Reiki master. And, that was part of me climbing back out into the person that I am today, was through that.
And what was the personal development you were doing that had you climb out, as you say?
Yeah. So I was one of the really important books that kind of helped me out was Iana Van Sen's In the Meantime.
Okay.
And it's all about going through love's house. And so you start at the basement and everything is always happening to you, and it's why does everybody hate me, so on and so forth. And then you start to walk up the steps in order to get to the first floor, and you go, as you're doing that work, it's like, okay, well, maybe it's not everybody's out to get me, but I have something to do with it. I know I have to change. I don't know what that quite looks like, but I'm willing to, start diving into it deeper. And then, you're on the first floor, and then you use the steps to get to the second floor, and then the steps again to get to the attic. And by the time you hit the attic, you are always coming from a space of love in anything and everything that you do. And being that it's love's house, nobody, unless you're a Buddha or something like that, staying there at that vibration is really, really difficult. So what really happens in life is you're, walking up and down the steps in between the floors,
Right.
right? All the time. And so that was the container that I was playing with and learning what I needed to do to walk up and down the stairs. Where
Right.
And Reiki was one of those things that helped me walk up the stairs.
Right. And yeah, I love that framework. And yeah, I could completely relate to having experienced moments of connection and love, and then the worst thing when it's one thing to kind of know you're out of love
Mhm.
and then be like, oh man, I've caught my, I need to find a way to get back to love.
Mhm.
But it's when you get, you're a few days in, you don't even realize you're out of love, right? You're not even aware you're disconnected, and that's what I'm playing with right now is that idea that can you be kind of consciously competent, right,
Yeah.
at managing yourself where you are in the house, uh,
Yeah.
and and how often do you just become unaware of being disconnected, and how can you bring at the least a level of connection to where you're at moment to moment?
Yeah, it's so true. And I think that's part of being human, you know?
Mm,
It's hence the reason the name of your podcast, right? Being human. This is
yeah,
it, y'all. Right? Like, it is walking up and down those steps. It
yeah,
is, falling down those steps sometimes and remembering, oh, yeah, things were really great when I did X, Y, and Z. Why did I stop doing X, Y, and Z?
right, yeah,
Maybe I should do that again.
yeah. It's so
Yeah, because we forget and life happens and things show up and people show up and experiences and so on and so forth. Um, so it is a constant, it's a constant working on yourself and being human and also forgiving. I think a lot of it comes down to forgiving yourself and moving forward.
Yeah, yeah. No, that relates. And Reiki. So I have to. I'll just be completely honest. I had a Reiki session once, and some guy hovered his hands over me for a bit, and I thought maybe I feel a little bit tingly, but nothing happened. Like, I was like, "What the hell was that?" But I am, as always, open minded. So yeah, and so tell me more about Reiki and how it helped you, and how you use it.
Yeah, it was in a moment in time where I'm like, okay, I'm just going to say yes. Things show up in my space. It's showing up for a reason. I'm going to say yes. And I was getting a massage, and my massage therapist, I really enjoyed her. She was lovely, and she was learning how to become a Reiki master. And part of becoming a master is, in order to become a master, you have to teach others level one of Reiki. And she's like, hey, would you be interested? And I'm like, yep. It was like one of those yep.
Yeah.
Yes, I don't know anything about it. I'm all for it. I'm just a yes. Let's go. And for me, it was like I'm more spiritual than I am religious. So I believe that there's something bigger and connected, but I don't necessarily have a terminology. I can use God, I can use universe, I can use spirit, I can use whatever terminology works, but I just know that it's something that a universal force, something that has us all connected. And from like a science perspective, if everything is energy, we're just essentially tapping into these different forms of energy, right? You see probably behind me all of my rocks and my crystals. I love my rocks and my crystals. I've always loved my rocks and my crystals. I grew up with a rock tumbler. When I would sleep at night, I would be tumbling rocks and stones. I'm sure my siblings hated that, but it was great and wonderful for me because I've always been drawn to them, but I never really understood why until I started, utilizing Reiki and utilizing the crystals within that part of my practice. Because their energy, because the different formations, the structural formations of different crystals can expand, they can remove energy, they can transmute energy, they can adjust it in your sphere. So I know I feel probably like I'm bouncing a little bit around, but they all tie together. So in Reiki, when I was learning it, I was mainly learning it just because it was something new and experiential, and I needed to do something different. And then I continued the practice, not necessarily because I wanted to be a Reiki master and go out into the world and that be my business. It was just another tool in my tool belt. Just like my rocks and my crystals, Reiki is another tool in my tool belt that allows me to support people where they're at. So if I look at it in today's world, when I first started my business in event production, it was, and I did my market research and I was asking people, hey, when it comes to planning and producing events, where's your energy? Where's, what do you love? What do you wish would just go away? And people would say, I'm so stressed out. I hate all the logistics. And I go, okay, great. If I can support you in relieving some of that, would that be helpful? And they go, yes. And so that's where the Reiki came in, was helping to relieve the stress, helping to pull the things off of their plate and me take it on, energetically grounding the energy, making it so it is a safe space and container. So you've probably maybe walked past somebody and you're like, "Oh, I don't know what's wrong, but something is up with that person." Like
Yeah.
intuitively you get those feelings. So we're utilizing the same principles along those lines of when you utilize great Reiki energy in an event space, you're grounding it, you're creating a safe space and container for transformation to happen, because that's what we focus on is transformational events. And so when our attendees walk in, they go, "I don't know what it is. I can't put my finger on it, but this just feels right. This just feels safe." And then it gets them to a place where they're level, and then they can do the work that they're there to do. So that's how I utilize it. It's a way to kind of create a bubble or a space and container that allows for them to come in and do the work that they want to do and not have to worry about all the other crazy things that are happening. It's just calming the energy down so they can be in the head space, so they can be in the heart space to move forward.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and this is why I've got you on the show, because I've never, in my experience of putting on events, and I haven't done for a while, I must say, that coming at it from that perspective, that energetic lens, is not something I've ever seriously considered. Obviously, many of the actions that I might take might contribute
Mhm.
to a good energy by having the place clean and set out well, and the thinking about the sightlines and all the other things you think about logistically. But not, I can imagine the difference it makes when you think purely from an energetic perspective, and what that brings. Uh,
Mhm.
yeah, so that makes a lot of sense. But back to your early experience with Reiki, I'm keen to understand, what is it that had you take that path? What were your early experiences with Reiki that gave you the motivation to pursue it?
I'd never experienced it. Oh, no, I take that back. So the massage therapist would do massage and Reiki on me.
Okay.
And so she's somebody that when she taps into the energy, she can see things, and she hears things. So how I actually found her in the first place is I had a job. I was a compliance officer. Woohoo, really sexy job. And I had 6 offices that I would travel to. And I had overheard one of the people talking. She's like, "I had the weirdest experience with my massage the other day." The woman came back afterwards and said, "So I have a message from your grandmother." And I was like, leaning in, trying to listen in. I'm like, "Tell me more, what's happening?" Because I'm like, that's fascinating. How does somebody like connect in and have a message from their grandmother who's, passed away or what have you? And, so I started going to her and I was like, "Hey, I'm open. If you ever have any messages, if you ever have any things of like what I'm supposed to do next, please do whatever it is you do and tell me what I'm supposed to do." And so that's how I ended up having my first interaction with somebody that could channel in through the messages, because it felt like my brain was always so foggy and I couldn't hear what source, God, universe wanted to tell me. And so I needed to utilize her as a conduit to get me the message. And so then when she said she was, going to teach it, I was like, great, maybe this will help me so I can hear the messages better. And the interesting thing is, as I was learning it, I was always upset because I'm like, "I don't see the things you see. Like, how do you see all of this stuff?" And she's like, "Well, what do you get?" And I was like, "Well, I end up hearing like parts of songs play over and over in my head, just snippets of it. And I kind of get feelings in my hands or in my body. So, I'll go to that part of the body if that's where it's leading me." And she's like, "Well, that's how you get your messages, because there's the 5 senses." right? You either see or you smell or you hear or you feel. I don't know what the fifth one is. There's 5 of them.
Yeah.
Um, knowings, right? I would just get things dropped into my head of like, I would tell somebody, this makes no sense to me, but X, Y, and Z. And then all of a sudden, the person I'm working with starts crying. And so the message was for them, right? It was whatever they were needing to hear in that moment. And so in Reiki, you are just utilizing and moving the energy through you as a conduit. It's not taking away from me. It's not putting anything into you. It's just moving the energy through and going where it needs to go for the person that I'm supporting.
Right. Right. And what I'm interested in your first experiences, what were the messages you were getting from your Reiki master? What was she telling you? And what was she
Uh,
tuning into?
yeah, gosh, it was many, many, many years ago, but it was things along the lines of like, yeah, you are more powerful than you realize, and that you actually led on. You are meant to. This is something that's actually stuck with me a long time. You are meant to lock arms and create a wave of change. Locking arms with people and creating a wave of change. And if I look at that, that's exactly what I do today. I lock arms with some amazing people doing fantastic work in the world, big names, and not so big names, but on their way to be big names or big names in their industry. And the vehicle we use is an event because the event allows us to touch the masses. So if I was to do business on my own and just, help people, I could probably help, I don't know what, 20, 100 people a year. But through here, I'm able to lock arms with a of 20 of my clients, and the people that they serve are hundreds of people. I mean, I've done an event with 600 people in person, and I've done virtual events of thousands of people all over the world. We are creating a huge, massive wave of change because I'm locking arms with them and supporting them to stay in their zone of genius. I take everything else off of their plate. I create a safe space. I make it so things run smoothly so that they can download what they need to download. They can support their audience based on whatever pain their audience is showing up with to change their lives.
Wow. Beautifully put. And that helps me see now how you went into Reiki with the foggy mind, as you said, and you were getting these clear messages. You need to lock arms. This is your role. And that's interesting because I don't relate to Reiki like that, right? I think of it as being like a sort of Uber massage or something, not like a channel to,
It doesn't even
higher
touch
meaning,
people's skin, right? It's all
right?
above.
Well, exactly. I just thought it was some sort of, weird
Weird.
massage.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Okay. Yeah. And then you clear, clearly started to develop your own ability, as you describe,
Mhm.
to do this same channeling.
Mhm. Yeah, in
Yeah.
my own way, in the way that, it shows up for me. And then, even like I was saying, going up and down through Love's house. I've been in business running and producing events for 11 years now. And even then, even though I started off being really super aware and conscious of bringing in the energy, throughout the years, I got away from it slightly. There's always going to be a level of it, but not the way that I was super intentional. And now it's coming back again stronger.
Right. Interesting. Yeah. And did you have any intellectual resistance to this? Because you'd been, you'd done several years of education, you've been in academia.
Yeah, I want
Did,
to become a
did
medical
you
doctor.
right? Yeah, you were nearly a medical doctor. So yeah, and I'm asking this question because this is something I've wrestled with, and yeah, it's only really in the last few years I've really started to open up to this idea that we are energetic beings, and there's this connection far beyond the mental and the physical that we have with each other, and potential, the universe at large. Did you have resistance to deal with, or were you open minded from the start?
I think it was open-minded from the start. One of the books that I grew up with was Louise Hay's You Can Heal Your Life. And in there, she talks about her story and how she ended up healing herself from cancer. And then she ended up doing a lot of work in the AIDS community. And not that she healed AIDS or anything, but just helped the emotional mind-body connection of what shows up in the body is what's showing up in your mind. And what is that connection? And what are the thoughts that we think that end up creating the dis-ease in our body? And I remember in college, one of the things I was having like some lockjaw issues. And I looked up in the book because part of the book has this chart of the thing that's showing up in your body. What is the probable cause and what's the new thought pattern? And I looked it up, and lockjaw was like anger and resentment towards somebody. And so I sat there and said, okay, who am I angry and resentful towards? And it was to an ex-boyfriend who had cheated on me. And so I'm like, okay. And I said the new thought pattern, and I really focused on it, and I meditated on it, and I did some journaling, and I did the work to release that, and it was gone.
Okay. So you had a very early experience of the power of this.
Yeah. And so that's that book I grew up with. And I continue. I mean, I even looked at it today.
Okay.
I looked at that book. So it's kind of my quote unquote Bible, so to speak. So I've been.
And again, just for the listeners who might have been intrigued by that. So that was Louise L. Hay's. What was the name again?
You Can Heal Your Life.
You Can Heal Your Life. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Yeah. I have heard of that now you mention it. Yeah.
Yeah. She later ended up founding a publishing company, Hay House.
Yeah.
So gobs and gobs of authors have come through Hay House and the work that she did. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So you didn't have that to deal with. You didn't have sort of intellectual resistance. You were open to it from the start, and that presumably facilitated, quite a rapid advancement through the Reiki.
Yeah, for sure.
Program, yeah.
I mean, the funny thing is, my fiance is an organic chemist, which is hilarious to me because that's the thing that I sat there and went, "Fudge, this is not what I'm supposed to do." Organic chemistry. And who am I with? An organic chemist. But he's very, very.
What you resist persists.
Right. Yeah. So, he is very, I mean, he went to Oxford, all of those things. Super wicked smart guy doing great things in chemistry. And, yet we are still together and connected because he has within him something that he goes, okay, I know the science, and I also know there's energy stuff that I can't totally justify through science, but works.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing with experience with this. You can't, if you have enough experiences, it gets to a point you have to accept it. The intellect gives up, and it's like, well, that's been my experience, right? It's just, you have too many of these experiences. You're like, okay, I just have to I'm forced to give up certain beliefs.
Yeah. Well, and you step into it and you just release resistance of it. And even that in of itself is pretty dang powerful, right? So if we go back to Louise Hay, things that showing up in your body are because there's resistance there. There's fear, there's insecurity, there's some anger, there's whatever it is. And because you don't look at it, the body and the universe will show you. It'll show you. It'll show you. It'll get louder. It'll get louder if you're not paying attention to it, to the point where you're like, it's lockjaw, right? Or it's whatever dis-ease shows up because you didn't pay attention to it before. You didn't hear the subtle cues. You didn't get the ahas. Let me go ahead and have it show up in your body. Do you get it now? Now you have to work on it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I had that with irritable bowel syndrome, which I cured myself of.
There you go. So you've experienced.
Through just tracing it back to childhood trauma, doing the work.
Yeah.
You release the trauma, and then over time, it doesn't happen. For me, I know for some it does, right? Some people do experience instant healing, but certainly in my case, it was over a period of years. I just gradually worked away bit by bit at the underlying trauma until I cannot remember the last time I experienced irritable bowel.
Yeah, it's the same thing. I mean, so if you look at it through that lens, what Reiki is It's just a modality that we utilize to get to the same outcome, right?
Yeah.
You've done it without Reiki, quote unquote, but you've worked with the same energies, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly. I just had a different lexicon. I
Right.
tended to talk in terms of trapped trauma or repressed trauma that needed relief. But I could equally use energy related terms, and it would make just as much sense.
Yeah.
Although I think there is a power in and this I think is the step forward in my own evolution, is that it's gone from being an inquiry about me and my emotions and my body, which has been powerful, into one about connectedness to all that is.
Yeah.
There is this thing, Richard, that experiences the world, and there's
Yeah.
this connection beyond.
So an interesting thing, I told you I grew up with horses. Horses, they're essentially prey animals, right? But when they're in a herd, you have everybody and their heads are down and they're eating, but you always have one that's kind of looking around. So with horses, energetically, how do I best explain this? Like their heart energies, the energy that goes out is kind of like this cyclical thing where it comes out and it comes back energetically. And so they're calming the nervous system of the entire herd. So everybody can have their heads down and eating, and one person's on the lookout of what's happening if any, somebody's going to come and eat them or attack them, right? So they work on a herd mentality that allows their nervous systems to be calmed by each other. And should the one that's looking automatically like type of thing, it's a ripple effect to all the others in the herd. They automatically look up, they see what's happening, and if they need to jam, they jam, right? So same thing goes for humans. Ours isn't as far out reaching as a horse's, because we're not only just prey, we are probably the ones out there looking for the prey.
Yeah.
But, we can connect in with each other and be in community and regulate our nervous systems together if we're in a safe space to do so. So it's just really fascinating to see how being human and looking at how other animals, mammals relate in community and don't relate, and what works and what doesn't, and what we can learn from them to support us in our own journey of developing who we are becoming.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Makes sense. And so you've made this transition from Reiki master to the event production. Yeah. Tell me a bit more about the steps in between. And you were a compliance manager. Like, what was the first event? Like, when was the pivot? I'm interested in that transition.
Yeah, for sure. So, was in the apartment complex, like all the shades drawn and like super dark space, trying to, go through Love's house. As I'm going through Love's house, I learned to become a Reiki master, starting to get back out there into the world, was asked to speak on stage. So I was out networking and, trying to do appreciation marketing, asked to be on stage, a multi-speaker event where, you would pass the microphones back and forth. And so when it was my turn to go and speak right beforehand, I told the guy who was going to give me the microphone, I'm like, hey, dude, don't go spitting on my mic. He looked at me and he started laughing. He's like, you're funny. Who are you? Come to find out, I didn't know this, but he was the head of education for Dr. Oz's nonprofit. And I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. I went to Maria Shriver's women's conference when she was the first lady of California. I tell you what, that event had 14,000 tickets sell out in 14 minutes. And so obviously I couldn't get a ticket. So I volunteered, and I volunteered for a couple of years, and that's where I met Saval. And he looked at me and he said, she's best friends with our CEO and we're doing a women's conference. You should help us. And I was like, okay. Again, it's another one of those moments of, hey, I'm trying to become a Reiki master. I need to teach somebody level 1. Are you interested? Okay. It was another one of those moments. And so my first gig as an associate producer was in charge of over 100 speakers and over 70 speakers and 100 volunteers.
Okay. Wow. And this was for Dr. Oz's nonprofit.
Yes.
Okay. And with and you met Dr. Oz?
Yeah, absolutely. I met him a few times. One when we were working with them on their stuff, and then as I progressed, moved to the Bay Area, ended up somehow getting connected to somebody else doing an event where he was going to be one of the keynote speakers. His team found out that I was on the team helping to produce it, and they said, Shay is our person. Shay's the only one talking to Dr. Oz. We don't want anybody else doing it but Shay because we know Shay, and Shay's got him. So that was kind of cool too.
Wow. Okay. And then when was your first move to take on event, as yourself in your own right?
Yeah. So that first gig as an associate producer, I didn't know how much to charge. I didn't know what a proposal was. I didn't know anything. So I'm like, here, this is how much I'm charging. And they're like, okay, great. I'm like, damn it, I should have charged more.
I know that feeling.
I ended up getting an email. I was following 2 different people. And then all of a sudden I saw the 2 of them coming together doing an event. And I was like, that's weird. Like, I never would have thought those 2 would have ever come together. But I'm curious enough to go check it out. And they said, the promise of this event is we're going to help you get speaking gigs in your own backyard. And we're going to help you figure out, what your niche is and, what your business can be and so on and so forth. And so I go to this 3-day event. I was broke, right? I was still living in the apartment complex. I had just started dating, who's now my fiance, and, slept, at his place because it was closer than me driving in every single day. And I got to the end of that event and they made an offer to join their program, their year-long group coaching program. And I sat there and went, if I don't do this, then what am I going to do? And so I said yes. And I was $500 shy of the deposit. So I took the money from Dr. Oz and I was still $500 shy of the deposit. And I told my fiance about it and he was like, I'll spot you the $500. I believe in you. We'd been dating for like 2 weeks. And I'm like, okay, let's go. Let's do it. And so that was the beginning. They were like, hey, so tell us your background. I was like, oh, Reiki master and running events and this, that, and the other. And they're like, you should do events with event and energy production, like combine the 2. And oh, by the way, will you run our events?
Oh, wow.
And that's how I became completely referral based, like 11 years ago.
Oh, it's been that long. Fantastic. Yeah. Wow. Right. And yeah, I mean, what a wonderful combination. So you're able to combine, you're right back to your childhood, your love of event production with your appreciation for energy.
Mm-hmm.
And working with energy in the event context. Yeah, I love it. And so you've been going 11 years. What happened during the pandemic?
We were already using Zoom. My team itself is not local, so we were on Zoom all day, every day anyway, doing all of our planning meetings. So this was kind of interesting though. In California, we went officially in lockdown on Friday the 13th, March 13th. And I had showing up in Santa Cruz, so a little bit more towards the south, 600 women that were going to show up on, I think it was that Wednesday after we shut down. And so we pivoted and went completely online. And, it was just a frenzy of like, what are we supposed to do? Oh my God, I have to still support these 600 women. And, pulled it off and had a great and amazing event, multi-million-dollar event for the client. The women had a great time and still got what they needed out of it. So during pandemic, we were completely virtual, and I love virtual. And now we still do both, right? We do in person, we do hybrid, we do virtual. I can build a studio. I've got a great studio in North Carolina where my Irish clients come over and they do things in the studio. It's gorgeous and amazing, but it allows us to stay connected with people all around the world, because in pandemic, the world opened up in a lot of respect. It closed down in some ways, but opened up in a lot of other ways. And so now the message and the locking the arms to create that wave of change expanded for us. So we pivoted quickly, and we just, got out there and supported our clients to do the work that they're supposed to do.
Brilliant. And so you didn't see a major hit on your business.
It actually expanded.
Wow. Wow. That's awesome. That's fantastic. And the crystals. So you're using the Reiki, just the principles and managing and working with the energy. Are you placing crystals in the event spaces? Are you using them online? I'm also interested.
Yeah, I have had some clients that are also very into rocks and crystals that ask for it. And so, yeah, we would set up north, south, east, west, and we had like altars, and we like gridded and all those kinds of things. And then I also have clients that are very, business, brick and mortar, helping people learn LinkedIn, right? That are not necessarily going, can you bring out your rocks and your crystals? So I'm not going to.
You
It's
don't
very,
sneak them in
I don't,
to
no,
give them a
I
little
do this
boost.
myself. And so before I go down to the event space, I'm grounding myself. I'm setting the intention. We'll do a team meeting. We'll set intentions with the team. So we'll do the energetic work, but I'm not necessarily setting up rocks and crystals in the corners of the room to help physically grid.
I would have loved it if you'd have said yes. We hide them under tables
Under
strategically.
the tables. Yeah. No, but I mean, it really depends on the client. So it's like we have one client that helps childcare business owners, like childcare centers, to grow their businesses so that they can serve more children and open up more locations and so on and so forth. And she was somebody that was like, I would love for the entire team to go around and just give love on each and every single seat. Right. So that was her way of wanting to bring in the energetic side of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, this is. I feel like you're on the cutting edge in some respects um, of applying these principles of energetic management to the business context. All right, it's happening in the healing space and within the healing arts, and more practitioners are, it seems, embracing these ideas. Of course, Reiki perhaps being the prime example. But yeah, I'm sort of curious to wonder how much this will start to, and it obviously is being taken up in certain entrepreneurial realms, but yeah, how quickly and how far will it spread into
Well,
more mainstream circles is interesting to me.
yeah, I have a feeling more people are closet energetic people than would admit out to the masses. I'm a feeling, because it's
Yeah,
that personal development, right? It's just another layer and level to personal development. And a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs are nonstop personal development. And this is just another way of supporting them in getting their message out to the world and attracting more people into their space.
yeah. It almost feels like if you do personal development long enough, you can't help eventually, but have to come to this conclusion.
Yeah.
We're energetic beings
Yeah.
and swimming in a sea of of vibration, right? Like
Yeah.
whatever the
Terms are
verbiage,
used. Mhm.
you come to a conclusion of that nature. It seems. I mean, and certainly that's been my journey doing this Being Human show. Yeah, I started off thinking I was somewhat out of the box, talking about mind body connection. Now I'm talking about crystals and energy healing and angels, and it's like it almost seems inevitable that we have to start thinking in those terms, as part of our personal growth.
And not make it so hard. I think we make it harder than it needs to be, and it's that gripping, right? So if I'm gripping this pen so hard, it won't flow through. When I release
Mm,
my grip, it can fall.
yeah,
Same thing goes for gripping onto your business, gripping onto your job, gripping onto your relationships, holding on so much that dis-ease shows up in your body. When we actually allow energy to flow, that's what it's meant to do. It's not supposed to be stagnant. It's supposed
Yeah.
to flow. And so where are you showing up in your life? Stagnant. Where are you showing up not in flow? And I have a feeling if you identify that, you're probably also going to see things that are not what you want them to be.
Right. Yeah. And what a graceful and easeful question. Like, how could I be more in flow? Where could I be more in flow? Where am I not in flow? And where could I allow flow to happen? Right. I love that orientation. Yeah. Yeah. Fascinating. Wow. Well, okay. Yeah. Well, one thing we said before we came on the show is we'd get, and sometimes I get this feedback on the show. Oh, Richard, you go into all this
You gotta
airy,
close
fairy
the
woo
loop,
stuff.
Richard.
It's all fun, but where's the practical? Where's my bloody 5 tips on, and so, yeah, like for again, for people who maybe they're an entrepreneur and they're putting on a marketing event, which obviously is, the main part of your client base, but also for those who are simply putting on an away day for their team, or maybe they run a corporation or a business and they've got a leadership retreat or some kind of event they know they've got coming up. What are your 3 principles or however you might summarize for people your approach to putting on graceful, easeful, awesome events?
Yeah. For me, it all comes down to experience. How can we make it experiential? So if you're doing an away day or you're doing something for your team, a lot of people call it like team building, this, that, and the other. But I want to take a look at it from, again, outside the box. How can we be out there shaking the sign? Right? How can we make it experiential for people? And so I like to look at like one of our clients, they ended up having their group of people come together to learn whatever they needed to learn, like the bullet point type of things you have to do in business or for the company. But the through line for them was in regards to rock climbing. And so part of what they were learning about then ended up moving into a field trip to take everybody to the movie theater to go and watch one of the rock climbing movies. I think it was like Free Solo or something along those lines. And watching how does this person show up and what are they doing and what were the setbacks and how did they maneuver through it and how did they jump from one rock to another and what was coming up for them and all the things. And then from there took everybody over to an actual rock climbing location.
Awesome.
Right? And so you got to experience yourself and how do you attack the wall? So, do you show up and start at the easy route or do you go straight for the hard route? Do you stay at the easy and do you make it to the top? If you fall, do you get back up? Do you stay on the ground? Are you somebody that is cheering everybody on until it's your turn? Are you doing your thing and then progressively moving up the stages? It's a great aha moment for everybody in attendance because their experience is going to be absolutely different, even though you're doing the same thing together. Right? So are you how you show up one way is how you show up in all areas. So for the people that are, I'm going to go straight for the black diamond, route up the rock, how do they show up in your company? How are they showing up in your team versus the one that doesn't ever get on the rock versus the one that is the cheerleader for everybody else? If you fall down, do you get back up? Like, it was a great, huge aha for everybody in attendance. And then you went back to the office or you went back to the retreat location and you debriefed it. And what did you like about yourself and how you showed up? And how would you want to be different? And what can you learn from somebody that goes to the black diamond versus stays and cheerleads or gets up and falls down and gets back up? Or, how can we learn from one another? And how is that in your personality and in your DNA? So my suggestion is, how can you do something that is experiential and different than your traditional retreat type of events?
Right. Yeah, I love that. So make it experiential and make it offer the opportunity for growth and reflection. It sounds like,
Yeah. And I mean, it
yeah.
doesn't have to be crazy. You don't have to take somebody rock climbing. One of our other clients, they played this game, Spoons. Have you ever heard of Spoons?
I know about it cuddling up to your lover in bed, but I assume that's not what you're talking about.
No, that's spooning. Uh, no, I haven't played it myself. But I think it's like a card game. So you play this card game and you have to like pick up the spoon the fastest or something. But that is something that the event planner internally for that organization did growing up and loved it. And it's a family tradition and something. And so they wanted to create a family dynamic within the workplace. And so they brought something from their outwardly family to the workplace family. And so now everybody has a way that they're having fun, that they're being energized. It's experiential. It's a talking point. It's a water cooler thing. It's a way to get to know one another. And it's just a card game with a spoon.
Right.
Right? So it
Yeah,
doesn't
no,
have
I
to
love
be crazy and go on field trips. It can be something along those lines too. That's the gamut. But it's like, how can you make it an experience with the outcome that you want to create? That last one wanted to create more family. And so they brought something in from their family and shared it with their employee family.
Yeah, and I like the reframing, and I can imagine all the people who experiencing death by PowerPoint at their corporate events.
Yes.
But this free, no, instead of going from what's the theme for our event to what shall we talk about, it's what's the theme of our event to what can we have people experience.
Yeah, what is the purpose and intention? Anytime we do an event, that we always start with the end in mind. What is the purpose and intention? And so for my marketing events and sales events, obviously we want them to move into buying our program or buying whatever it is that we're selling. However, we take it a step further and say, regardless if they buy from us, what are we wanting them to walk away with? Same thing for, a corporate type of event. What are you wanting them to walk away with? That is the purpose and intention of the event. Then you
Yeah,
reverse engineer everything to make sure you hit that goal.
yeah, yeah. I love that. And well, the parallel works perfectly because in most corporate events, there's some form of message you're selling.
Mhm.
Whether it's the strategy for the company or the values that you'd like the company to embrace, or the new move you'd like the people to get behind it, in terms of the company's direction. But to go one step further and say, well, okay, that's important, but what do we want people to come away with,
Yeah.
as
And
an
remember that
experience?
we
Mm.
feel.
Yeah,
So experiential means having some type of feeling around it. Not death by PowerPoint.
yeah, brilliant. No, I love that. No, that's wonderful. And now I'm desperate to look at what spooning spoons is. It isn't spooning.
Not the cuddling
Um,
kind.
maybe you could do both.
Well,
That's a
there you
new.
go. That's a whole new experience
That's a new activity. Okay. Um,
in the corporate space.
wonderful. So yeah. Anything else you'd share in terms of wisdom, advice for people? Yeah, putting on their
Yeah.
own event.
I would say, you know, events are, for some reason, I see events as a way of really helping people become human, right? People buy from people, people engage with people, and events allow for an experience, whether it's a sales event, whether it's a corporate event, whatever. It's all about the energy, the connection, the what you're establishing with the person across from you is what sticks. And I think that when you come at it from the energetic perspective, that's when it allows you to go deeper and create more meaningful relationships, and people wanting to support you and what it is that you're doing and whatever your mission is. So events will never die. And we just want to make sure that we're creating an experience of humans being human, not just getting your PowerPoint agenda across or your sales across because you need to make sales. It's about how can we support each other in locking arms and creating a wave of change together.
Right. Wonderful. Awesome. Yeah. Thank you. And before we came on, you mentioned that you had a free guide, or no, sorry, not a free guide. There's a guide around creating authentic connection that we can link to. Is that right?
Yeah. So there's a couple of different things. GraceandEaseProductions.com. There's a couple of free resources there, especially if you are an entrepreneur wanting to engage your audience. How do you fill your events? How do you increase your audience? Things of that nature. If you're in the corporate space, we have the ultimate guide to audience engagement. This is something that we absolutely learned during the pandemic that allowed for us to raise the bar of audience engagement. So some of those strategies that I mentioned are in there. How do you increase people showing up and how do you increase the engagement? So that one is a paid guide, but there's on the website, there's a number of different free resources as well. That we can link to in the show notes, like the High Profit Event Playbook, how to increase your audience. That's highprofitevents.com. But really, the best way is graceandeaseproductions.com, and you can find a number of resources there.
Brilliant. We'll make sure we link to all of that. Well, just the website, it sounds like, and then people can find their way to the guides. Seems like there's a book in you, Shay.
Oh, I'm sure there is. My team's been talking to me about it for a while now, and I'm sure it will come out. It's probably in process.
Great. Okay. Well, wonderful. Thanks again. We'll put the link, and can't wait to get this out there.
I love it. Thank you so much. I'm excited to hear how people utilize what they learned here out in the world. So share your comments with us.
Fabulous. All right. Thank you so much.